Somewhere over the last few years, I got a little too caught up in watching different curriculum review videos and curriculum selection videos on places like YouTube. And I started listening to those reviews more than I did my own inner voice on the things that I really believed and wanted for our own home education experience. And that's nobody's fault but my own. So first of all, hi and welcome if you're new here. My name is Haley and I'm a homeschooling mama to two little boys. I have three little boys, the youngest of which is 3 months old, and he's actually sitting right here, so you may hear some baby coos and talking in the background. But I shared on here back in January the things that I had decided to use for our school curriculum, and I just wanted to take a few minutes and talk about those things with you guys. We done 6 weeks of schooling, and then we took about a 2-week break. We went on vacation to Tennessee, and then we came back, and we've been back into our school routine for the last couple of weeks. We do have a couple of subjects that I'm going to be changing curriculums out in completely, but first I'll start with what has worked really well. So for my middle son, we are doing kindergarten math with confidence. I love that program. I mentioned that I loved it whenever I was talking about my curriculum picks for his kindergarten year, and I still love it. The manipulatives and the games just really help the child to understand the meaning behind the concept, and my son's just doing so great with it, so we're going to continue on with that with him. Okay, something else that we're using this year that we've been enjoying so far is Sonlight. We are doing their HBL program. I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head, but it is one geared, I believe, for like the 6 to 8 year old group. So we're doing their history, their Bible, their literature, and then I also picked up their suggested readers for my oldest son to read on his own. So I'll just go briefly real quick through the books that we've enjoyed that they recommend. So included in the HBL, there is a poetry book recommendation. So we've been going through this Bill Martin Jr. Big Book of Poetry. It's cute. The poems are short and sweet. You read one a day, and it gives you some questions in the guide to discuss with the children. I'll be honest, I haven't really used it that much. We just read the poem and then discuss it on our own instead of, you know, having a set question to go over with it. It also has, like I mentioned, a Bible reading time, but we've also been reading through this Bible for Children. It's just a 1-year Bible, has a reading for each day of the year. We've been enjoying this one. It has some discussion questions to go over at the end of each day's reading. So this has been good. As far as the history aspect of the program, we are enjoying it also. We're going over early American history, and most of the books we have enjoyed. There's been a couple that aren't my favorite, which I'll talk about, but we have enjoyed this George versus George book. It's the American Revolution is seen from both sides, and it's just very informative, but in a way that kids can really understand it. So my boys are 5 and 8, and they've just really enjoyed looking at the pictures in this book. We read the quotes that it gives from some of the individuals in here, and you just read a couple pages each day that it's scheduled, so you'll go back and forth between like a variety of different picture books, but this is the main one that we're reading from right now, and we have enjoyed it. We did also enjoy this book, The Very First Americans. It talked about the different Native American tribes. It told you about the things that the different tribes would eat based on their geographical location, and as well as like the type of homes that they would build and things like that based on, again, where they lived at. So this was a good book that we enjoyed. The New York Colony has not been my favorite. We're actually not going to finish reading from it. I just gave up on it a few days ago because it has some vocabulary in there that's kind of over my kids' heads, and they're just not interested in it. It just reads very textbookish instead of like a story, and it hasn't been a hit. So we're giving up on that one. Three Young Pilgrims. This one was in story format about a family of pilgrims that comes over here, and they did enjoy it. It has beautiful pictures in it. So this was a good read, and I think it was only scheduled for a few days, but we enjoyed this one. These books right here, The Heroes and Happenings, are kind of like the spine of the history program, I guess. So every so often it has you read about an event or a person in here, and this one hasn't been my favorite either. The readings are kind of long for my boys. They're used to listening to longer readings because we do read aloud. It just kind of reads a little bit like a textbook again, and it's quite a bit of reading at their age in a textbook format, I think. So I don't know. I don't love this one. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. Yeah. So we're just gonna pull from it as I see fit. Whenever there's a story in here that I think that they'll find interesting, then I'll pull from it. This book is not part of the Sonlight curriculum. I picked this up at a local homeschool store, but it is Stories of Great Americans for Little Americans. So my oldest son has been reading these little stories in here every morning. I just pick one for him to read, and it just covers a variety of different events and people in early American history, and it's in a lot more engaging format than the last book that I showed you guys. So like this morning he read about the first steamboat, and it was just a short little reading there, and it was an engaging story. So he enjoyed it. We're gonna keep reading from this. It's good for his reading comprehension, but it also goes along with our history timeline pretty well. We've also been following the literature guides from Sonlight. They've been okay. Again, I don't know that any of the books we've read have been any of our favorite read alouds that we've done as a family, but they've been okay. They've been cute stories. So one that my boys really did enjoy, and we actually ended up listening to a couple other of the versions on audiobook, was Miss Piggle Wiggle. It's about a woman named Miss Piggle Wiggle who has a wide variety of ways of teaching kids to break bad habits. And it's just silly and it's cute. Some of the language in here wasn't my favorite whenever it comes to like some of the names the kids would call one another. It just wasn't my favorite as a mother. So we read it. We had some good discussions around the behaviors that were in here, but like I mentioned, it wasn't my favorite. My boys did think it was cute though. Sled Dog School was another one that we did enjoy. So the main character in this book is starting a sled dog school as part of a school project in his math class, and my kids did enjoy hearing about the sled dogs and things like that, but a lot of the details in here as far as like running a business, I know that my 5-year-old did not pick up on it. My 8-year-old maybe a little bit, but for the most part, things like a profit and loss and a balance sheet and all of that, he just wasn't really enjoying it as part of our read aloud time. So had parts of it that we enjoyed, parts of it that he did not. Here's a Penny was a cute book. We did enjoy this one. It's about a little boy who is adopted named Penny, and just some of the different things that he has going on in his life. And it was a cute little read. We are currently right now listening to In Grandma's Attic on audiobook. That one has been probably my favorite that we've listened to so far, just because I really enjoyed the Little House on the Prairie series, and it kind of reminds me of Little House on the Prairie times. And my boys are listening to it, and some of the stories that Grandma tells are also cute and funny, and they've been enjoying listening to that one. Now, when it comes to the books that my son is reading from Sonlight, for the first 100 days of the readers that it schedules, it's actually a child storybook Bible. He read on that for like the first 6 weeks of school, but then whenever we started back up this last time, he actually took a break from reading his Bible, since we do our morning time Bible reading together as a family also. And he picked out this Pompeii Buried Alive book. And he just finished reading this one. He really enjoyed this one. He actually stood up and gave us like a little oral book report type thing this morning to myself and my husband, and he done an excellent job retaining the information that was in here. So this one was a hit. He does enjoy the children's storybook Bible also, but I think that we will continue to read it for a few weeks and then maybe break it up with a different reading also, just to give him a little bit of variety in his school days. Now for the things that I'm kind of neutral on the way that I feel about them, and that includes Abeka K4 Phonics. So I'm trying to think of the best way to describe how I feel about the program. It's definitely, even though the front of the teacher's guide says it's the homeschool edition, it's definitely still set up in a way that makes more sense for a classroom. So every day you'll have your phonics section and then your phonics review, and a lot of it is the same thing being gone over each time. But if you look at the schedule that Abeka gives you in the front of the teacher's guide, that's because you're actually supposed to do the review at one point of the day and then the phonics lesson at another part of the day. We don't do that. We sit down and we do phonics one time a day, and that's pretty much it. So I find that I don't really use a teacher's guide that much, that I'm just glancing at it briefly, seeing when a new letter is supposed to be introduced or a new blend, and pulling from it. And I also don't play the games in the way that it tells us to play the games. I feel like, I guess I was thinking, since I bought the learning games package, that all of the games we would be playing or prompted to play in the teacher's guide, I would just use those pieces. But there's quite a lot of times that it tells you to like prepare this thing or prepare that thing, and I'm just not wanting to do that. I guess the reason that I'm neutral on the way I feel about it is because I paid quite a bit for it. I paid over $200 for the Becca Phonics program, and I just, after using All About Reading and then also using The Good and the Beautiful with my oldest son, I don't know that the price point of it is worth what I have and what I'm using from the program. We have also started mixing in like some sight word practice, just because I think he was getting a little bit burnout on, you know, just practicing letter sounds and then the consonant and vowel blends over and over and over again, that he was getting a little burnout because he felt like he still was not actually reading, and he was excited to start learning how to read. So we've introduced some sight words through some of the old school McGuffey readers, and it's just keeping him excited. You know, it's keeping him excited to see new words, to learn new words, and then he's also getting the phonics practice in there. So we're doing a combination of phonics through Abeka and sight words, and it's working fine, and we're going to continue with Abeka, but I don't think we will probably do Abeka next year. Okay, the other program that I was so excited to use whenever I first ordered it was Christian Light Education, and I'm sad to say that we're not using it anymore, but then again, I'm not sad to say that we're not using it anymore. And it wasn't necessarily the program lacking anything. The program actually has a ton of information in it. The language arts covers a variety of different aspects of language arts all in the one book. The math gives you plenty of review. I actually did a little flip through of the math level 2 on my channel that I can link, and I was doing away with more of the information in the books than I was actually using. So for the math, I was probably crossing out like 80% of the review questions because it just felt like overkill every single day. So we actually did end up using like the first 5 light units of level 2. We moved through them very quickly, which I had expected to, because like I mentioned, we have like a weird start date. So my son's kind of like in between grades. He's not a true grade 2, but he was still a little bit behind like a grade 3 curriculum in most curriculum choices. I knew we would move through the first half of grade 2 very quickly, and then I was planning to slow down on the second half of grade 2, and I actually went ahead and ordered the second half of the curriculum for both math and language arts because I thought we would continue with the program. And I also hate switching curriculums, and once you get started on it during the year, I just really wanted to stick with it. Okay, we're gonna have a baby join us now. So like I mentioned, I don't like changing curriculums this soon after we start one, but I just felt like this was not it. My son was having negative feelings towards every time we sat down to do our schoolwork, and I do not want that for him at such a young age. I want my children to always enjoy the process of learning. I don't want them to have negative feelings towards learning. That's not that I want them to think that learning is always easy or fun. They have to be challenged, but there's a difference between being challenged and being just like overall frustrated with the process of learning. And I don't want to, set my children up to be frustrated every day that they sit down for their lessons. Christian Light Education to the side for now. I actually have a new curriculum that's supposed to be delivered today that is a totally different approach to language arts and to math. I really feel like somewhere over the last few years I got a little too caught up in watching different curriculum review videos and curriculum selection videos on places like YouTube, and I started listening to those reviews more than I did my own inner voice on the things that I really believed and wanted for our own home education experience. And that's nobody's fault but my own. I have to be more cautious of the things that I take in, and I have to have a more firm foundation on what I want our home schooling experience to look like. Because of that, I've been taking these last couple of months to really step back and reevaluate what it is that I believe about education and what it is that I want my children to walk away with at the end of all these years of school, what matters the most, and how can a curriculum help us to get to that point, and how to be able to see a curriculum that is not going to help us get to that point. And I think that that can look so different for every family. Like a curriculum that I may say, this is not getting us to those end goals because of my children's learning styles or preferences or the way that our family is. That might not be the same. Like for you, like I feel like you always have to say that whenever you put a curriculum to the side on YouTube, because people get so passionate and think that you're like coming against their choices, and that's not at all what it is. It wasn't a good fit for my son. So all of that to say, Christian Light Education is being sat to the side, and we're going to be starting something new for language arts and math for my oldest son. And that should actually be in today, so hopefully I can get a video up soon for you guys of what that is and just talk about some of the reasons why I opted to go with what I did decide to go with. It is, like I mentioned, a completely different approach to math and language arts both, but it's more in line with some of the educational philosophies that I just really feel drawn to, and I feel like is how I want my children to be educated. So that's it for today, you guys. I'm going to go get this sleepy baby, lay down for a nap, and I thank y'all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.